Hey guys, this is Archon, and I just wanted to show you this new critical mass build that's gotten really popular since patch 1.0.3. And I'm going to show you a couple different variations you can try with the build and how it's been working for me. So shortly after Diablo came out, this critical mass build got some popularity. It relies on getting lots of crits and then using the critical mass passive to reduce all your cooldowns. But Blizzard felt it was a little overpowered and they hotfixed it. They basically made it so critical mass didn't work anymore. But then in 1.0.3 they brought it back. It's just a little less powerful with certain spells, but it still works really well, especially if you have a high crit chance. So the idea is, of course, you have critical mass on here, and you're going to use a spell like Energy Twister. In fact, you probably just want to use Energy Twister because it can get a lot of crits. You can get a lot of them out at once. You definitely want to use the Wicked Wind rune. That's going to make it so that Twisters stay in place, which is what you want because the enemies will be staying in place. And once you have the Energy Twisters down, your cooldowns will start going down really fast. And the two main spells that you need the cooldowns down on are Diamond Skin and Frost Nova. Because you're going to be a melee wizard, guys are going to be crowding you the whole time. But the cooldowns are going to go down so fast that your Frost Nova and Diamond Skin can be on almost all the time, which makes you pretty invulnerable if you can keep it up. And there's only a couple packs that I really have a problem with this build. For Frost Nova, I use the Cold Snap rune just to bring down the cooldown. But you could use any of the runes if you're not having trouble with the cooldown. I've seen people use the Deep Freeze rune to get 15% bonus crit if you freeze 5 targets or more. The only reason I don't use that is because I'm usually not freezing 5 targets, especially in like the elite packs, which are the hard ones. But any of these runes would really work, so you can play around with them. Your main attack is going to be Spectral Blade with Healing Blades. This is just so you get some health back, and it also is a pretty high damage primary skill. And you only get healed for 8% of your damage done, but if you have a lot of crit and you get some crit hit damage, it can actually be some pretty significant healing. Now my slot number 3, I have Archon on there right now. The most popular one is probably Explosive Blast, but I would just call this a wild card. You can put almost anything here. The build doesn't need a skill here. Explosive Blast is going to give you more damage, of course. I really like using Archon, especially in groups, for 2 reasons. One, it's nice to be able to dish out a bunch of damage when you need to. 2, the packs that it's hard to use this build on, it's usually a lot easier with Archon, especially with slow time. You'll see in a lot of these clips I'm using the Pure Power rune that reduces the cooldown, but I've been using slow time more now because those ranged packs like the dragons, it's really nice to be able to slow down their projectiles. And the third spell I would recommend using here would be Slow Time. The spell Slow Time, not the rune. And that's really good for a defensive skill if you're just trying to tank or something like that, because you're slowing down their time or their attack speed rather, by 20%, which is awesome. Movement speed of enemies and projectiles is slowed down too, so you're getting a lot of defense in there. And then you can use the rune to either increase damage taken by 20% or increase attack speed of people in the bubble by 10%. And it just provides a lot of utility to the group, so I've tried that one out too. Another good thing about Archon with this build is it's almost always off cooldown because you're getting so many crits normally. Cooldown's always going down. It even goes down while you're getting crits in Archon, and so you can almost go into Archon anytime you want. It's pretty much always off cooldown, so it's nice to be able to just change back and forth between tank mode and damage mode. Also, I like having Archon on my build because my name's Archon and it doesn't really make sense if I'm not using Archon. Try it out. You might like Archon, or you might like Explosive Blast or Slow Time more. And of course you want Prismatic Armor on there, the Energy Armor rune, just for the extra defense, because you are still going to be taking hits, and Diamond Skin benefits a lot from extra armor and extra resistance, so you're still going to need that armor and resistance on your gear. My passives, I have Blur on there. I think that one's a must. You're taking a lot of melee damage. Critical Mass, of course, is what the build is based around. And then I have Evocation on here. If you find that your cooldowns are going down plenty fast with just Critical Mass, then you could replace this with whatever you want. Really, it's not a necessary one. So these are the skills that you can use, the ones that I'm using, and I'll show you a little bit of the stats that you might want to use. So the main one, of course, you want a high crit chance. It's not going to work unless you have lots of crits. I know people have done it with like a 20% crit chance or even less. In my defensive gear, I can do it with a 24%, but the more you have, the easier it's going to be. So normally I'm rolling with 45% crit chance. Critical hit damage is not necessary for the build to work at all, but when you have this high crit chance, that crit hit damage will add a lot of DPS. So if you need some extra damage, crit hit damage is really good for that. It's nice to have decent resistances. With my prismatic rune, I'm just around 1,000, I guess. I do have more defensive gear with less crit chance. It would bring me up to about 1,200 with energy armor. And you don't need that much, but the more resistances, the more armor you have, the less damage you're going to take, which means diamond skin's going to last longer. So it's really going to help with this build. And my armor is up to 8,500 right now. I'm using a shield right now. Shields are nice for the extra armor, for the block chance, and you can usually get a lot of crit and resistances on there as well. But sometimes I'll use an offhand. If I'm not worried about dying, then it's nice just to have the extra damage. There's a few stats that you could also get that I'm not using, but could be very helpful. For example, life on hit on your weapon will help you stay alive, especially when you're casting those healing blades. They're just going to heal you a lot faster. If you get at least 1,000, I've heard, it'll keep you up. By the way, a lot of the subscribers have helped me out with this build. They've given me a lot of tips, so thank you guys for your comments and messages. It's helped me out a lot. So like I said, I haven't gotten life on hit yet. I usually survive okay without it, and I really like this weapon, but I might try out life on hit. And the other stat that I'm not using that can be really helpful is Arcane Power on crit. If you get like 10 Arcane Power on crit, then you're critting constantly, and you'll just have a never-ending supply of Arcane Power. Now I'm usually using Archon or Slow Time and don't really need the extra Arcane Power, but if you're using Explosive Blast, then it'd be nice to have that extra Arcane Power. And I did forget to mention Arcane Blast also will give you a few more crits that'll bring your cooldowns more, but most of your crits are going to come from Energy Twister. And as a side note, it's good to think of Energy Twister as just a crit factory. Don't worry about it as far as damage goes. It's going to do some good damage, but Energy Twisters are what you want to put out to get your cooldowns down. So that's about it for the gear you're looking for. Everything else I have is just coincidence. So the strat with this build is you're going to rush in, and you want to get those Energy Twisters down as soon as possible so your cooldowns start going down quickly. On some of the harder groups, you might have to pop Diamond Skin before going in and then lay down a Frost Nova really quickly. And then you would use the Energy Twisters to try to get the cooldowns down so you can freeze them again before they come unfrozen. Once you have a couple Twisters down, you can start casting your Healing Blades, Spectral Blade rune. That'll do a good amount of damage and keep you topped off. And then just always make sure you have a couple Twisters down. If you get to a point where no Twisters are down, your cooldowns aren't going to go down nearly as fast, and you might find yourself in a bit of trouble. I know some people just spam all the skills, and it works for them. But for me, I like to keep an eye on my Diamond Skin and Frost Novas, and just use them when necessary, so I can get out more Twisters and Spectral Blade attacks, and I'm not wasting time using Diamond Skin or Frost Nova when I don't need to. It was a bit challenging for me at first. It's a lot to manage when compared to the Blizzard Hydra combination. But after a while you get used to it. I still have to be looking at my action bar about 50% of the time, and it's a little annoying because I'll miss things on the ground. But I think over time I'll get more used to it, and I'll be able to pay attention to what I'm doing and look at the action bar. I found that it works best in groups. I still use Blizzard Hydra when I'm soloing most of the time, but it just provides so much utility in groups. You can keep enemies slowed most of the time. You're also a tank, you're keeping enemies grouped up. And then if you need to, you can do some really high ranged DPS if you decide to have Archon in there. But whether you do Archon, Explosive Blast, or Slow Time, you're providing a lot of utility to groups. If you guys have found another skill that works there as well, then let me know in the comments, because there's probably some other ones. Like I said, you only really need the other 5. That skill's a wild card. This build has gotten really popular really fast. I've been doing a lot of public games and noticed that there's a lot of wizards out there using it. You do have to get a little bit of gear before you can use it effectively, but it's working really well. It's a nice change of pace from the Blizzard Hydra, and it's really the first build that wizards can provide good utility to groups. Wizards don't have to just be some extra damage anymore and a little bit of slowing. We can really help out groups, and I would probably argue that we provide the most utility at this point. There aren't many other class strategies that can provide this much help to a group. So I'm hoping that Blizzard doesn't hotfix it or nerf it at all, because I'm really enjoying it, and I know you guys are too. So if you've seen something that I've missed, or you think that you have an improvement on this build, please post it in the comments. We like to read about that, and I learn a lot from you guys. If you haven't subscribed already, please do that. We try to put out a video every day showing wizard strategies and gameplay and stuff like that. And every Friday we do item giveaways. So I hope you like this video. I hope this build will help you guys out, and we'll have another video for you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.